So the question was when Ajahn Mahabua would go visit Lupu Thai at Khao Yai, there's a rumor that he went more than 100 times, and so the question is what did he say to Lupu Thai when he went to visit? Khao Yai is about 20 or 30 acre monastery where Lupu Thai is now, and the story of the monastery is that a layperson wanted to give it to Ajahn Mahabua, but he already had his monastery, and so he asked Lupu Thai to come and stay there, and so there was a connection between them already at that monastery. Before that time, Lupu Thai was in Nong Khai province, which is on the very northeast border of Thailand, at a monastery called Pu Wua, which he had been there ever since his teacher Lupu Fan passed away, and it's a very conducive place. There are all sorts of animals that help with your mindfulness and to keep you from getting lazy, such as elephants and tigers. And not only that, but there are also some non-human beings, such as various incidents with devas and nobody knows quite what, who there was a story of when something pulling a laywoman by the leg out of her kuti in the middle of the night when she was sleeping. And so anyway, these things are very beneficial in the practice to keep you diligent. This was in line with Lupu Man's way of teaching, which is that you should try to stay secluded in the forest. Lupu Fan himself studied with Ajahn Man and remembered this teaching, and so when Lupu Man passed away, Lupu Fan went into the forest, took the forest and mountains as his teachers. And then when he passed away in 1977, Lupu Thai did the same thing, went to Khao Yai. He went to Pu Wua. And then when he was at Pu Wua, Lupu Mahabua went to see him there and discovered what a great place it was to practice. And at that time, there were only 4 or 5 monks because there was only one very small village that they could depend on for alms food. And so Lupu Mahabua saw this and said, you can invite as many monks as you want to come, I'll take care of the food. You don't have to worry about it, you can just practice. And so after that he started sending trucks of food to the monastery, and up to 2, 3, or even 4 6-wheel trucks per month, those are pretty big trucks. And so then the number of monks gradually increased until there were about 50 monks staying there. And so then when the layperson offered this land to Ajahn Mahabua, he said that he had been taking care of Lupu Thai long enough, and so now it was time he was going to ask him to come and help out. And so he asked him to come down to Khao Yai. And at first there were no trees in the monastery. It had been a farm before that, and so but other than that, it was a very nice place. It's up in the mountains, so it's cooler. And the other benefit is that it's very centrally located. It's only maybe 2 or 3 hours outside of Bangkok, and it's convenient for people to come from all different provinces of Thailand. So Lupu Mahabua would come about just every few days, sometimes up to 3 or 4 times a week, to come visit. And when the news got out that Ajahn Mahabua was coming, the place would be totally full of people. People would come to listen to him give Dhamma talks, and then when he gave Dhamma talks, the main points were to keep the foundations of the practice, to stick to the values of the practice. He gave a lot of Dhamma talks to monks to make sure that they maintain the original principles and values of the practice. There's one story that illustrated that. He was showing Ajahn Mahabua around at first and pointing out various sites that they were thinking about for a sala. And at one point he pointed out there's a place over there we're thinking about building a kuti for you to stay in when you come. And Ajahn Mahabua said, I can't do it. He said, hey, what's the point for a kuti? There's trees over there. I can just stay under a tree. Which is how they did it in the old days. They would stay under a tree. Once the rainy season was over, you would build a little platform out in the trees, and not big enough to lie down on, because if it was big enough to lie down on, you'd go to sleep. So you just build a little sitting platform under the trees. And other things like when he was with Lupu Fan, he said Lupu Fan really stressed being very restrained in all your activities. So For example, when they would go on alms round, they would go down to the foot of the mountain they were staying on, and the villagers would come and meet them at the foot of the mountain. And he said they would go from alms round and come back, and they couldn't say whether they were men or women that were offering food, because they just were focusing on their bowl, just keeping their attention focused on the bowl, so they didn't even see the faces of the people putting food in the bowl. Also, when the monks would go on alms round, they wouldn't chat with each other. Each monk would go by himself, meditating as he walked. And if they got there early, before the villagers came, they would go out in the forest and meditate, sit meditation, wait for the villagers to come before they accepted their alms. So, to summarize, when Ajahn Mahabodhi came to Kaoyai, that is the kind of thing he would talk about. He would stress that we shouldn't abandon the basic values and principles of the practice. Another thing that Lupo talked about when he was practicing early on, that he would eat very little, and sometimes he would even fast for up to 3 or 4 days or even a week. And when he was fasting, he had the feeling that if it were possible to keep his body alive without eating, then he wouldn't ever go out on alms round again, because there was so much pleasure from his meditation that he experienced the pleasure of concentration that was so much better than the pleasure that comes from sense contact of eating. So then from that point he didn't have any more doubt about how what the Guru Ajahns talk about, that there is pleasure that comes from the practice that's higher than the pleasure of sensual things, and so once you have that, then you can really abandon those kind of sensual cravings.